guys how to create your own territories for data grid information to populate, but there's actually a couple of different ways that you guys can do that. I'm going to go ahead and zoom out here within my area to kind of make it a little bit easier. But one of the ways that you guys have is to click that little finger icon on the far left-hand side and then draw your own territory if you guys choose. But another extremely helpful way to use data grid is using this little diamond icon on the far right-hand side of the screen. This is your data grid overlay system. If I go ahead and click on that, you guys will see that it loads in information about the entire state. So if I go ahead and zoom in, or I guess zoom out, sorry, to show you guys, it'll actually have information about every single state here within the US, where if I click on Utah for this example, it'll show you there's about 1.2 known million homes that are built right now with people occupying them. But if I want to go ahead and hone in on my search, so if I go ahead and zoom in towards where I'm located, you'll see that it kind of breaks it down from a statewide level into a county level. So once I zoom in just a little bit further and give it a moment to load, this is Utah County with about 196,000 people. And then right up here more north, this is Salt Lake City County with about 408,000 people. But if I want to hone in even further and then find territories within each city that may or may not be a good place to canvas, let's just say they want to focus on American Fork and Pleasant Grove here. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in, and you'll see that it breaks down each individual city into sub-regions. So if I go ahead and click on this little, I guess, southwestern area of Pleasant Grove, it'll show me there's about 2,400 homes in this section, and about 58% of the people that live in this area actually own their home. So this area is probably full of a lot of student housing. Maybe it's full of a lot of, I guess, condos or condominiums. And most people's credit scores are about 693. So maybe it's not a good place to go if I'm trying to sell solar or something like that. But most people, their homes are worth about $532,000, at least in this section. So again, it kind of gives you a combined total average on what it's like in this territory. And it will do that for each individual sub-region. So this place has a little bit of a higher percentage, I guess, of people actually owning their home. Most people's credit scores are a little bit higher, maybe a bit more northern in Pleasant Grove. A lot of more people actually own their homes up here. Now, I know this from personal experience because I currently live here right now, and up in this area, the more northern area of Pleasant Grove, this is typically like a lot of older homes that were built in like the early 90s, maybe early 2000s, and then people just own their home. They don't rent them out typically here. Not a lot of student housing up here either, or apartments for that matter. Most of those are found more towards these cities here. So it just kind of gives you guys a little bit more of an average of what the city is like, or I guess what that region of the city is like. And if you want to create a territory using this method, there's a little constellation icon, kind of looks like a bunch of points with lines connecting it. If I click on that constellation icon, it will take that territory, cut it up for me, and then draw it out automatically. So I don't have to draw it myself. That way, just like I showed you guys before, I can then assign that territory to myself and populate those pins. Now, using this method of drawing up data grid territories for you is a little bit cleaner, because if I zoom in, you guys will see that it always draws it to the edge of each street to make sure that you guys are always getting every opportunity that you can to actually make sure that home is within that region that you guys are trying to populate. So again, just a different way of populating data grid pins. Now, let's go ahead and talk about one of the more key elements of data grid.
So Russ, let's wait. So for you to relate this to roofing, as a roofer, because you come from the roofing industry, you mentioned, right? Several years. Yeah. Okay. So how did you use data grid for the roofing industry, like for you personally?
So me personally, we did a lot of cold canvassing here in Utah. Now, I would obviously use weather for storm dates and then use data grid information to tailor my pitch to that person. So if I can see that their home was built in the early 90s, so if I just click on one of these homes in particular, I can see these people have their home built early 2000s and it's about 18 to 19 years old, or at least that's how long they've lived there. I'd walk up and be like, hey, I was talking to your guys' neighbor. I would actually look at the neighbor's next door information. And let's just say someone that's been there for a while, I'd look at Matthew and then just say, hey, Matt, how's it going? I was talking with Greg, your next door neighbor, and he I guess, knows that a storm blew through here a few years ago. He was talking to me about it, recommended I come talk to you because he says he likes you. And I would just kind of use their information to say, hey, your neighbor said I should come and talk to you because the storm did blow through. We know that you guys never did anything about it because at least your neighbor said that he never saw trucks in front of your home. And then it would just kind of help me tailor my pitch towards that individual. And I can be like, hey, I know that your home was built about 20 years ago. Most roofs don't last, longer than 15 to 25 years, depending on the material. Do you mind if I get up there and take an inspection? Typically people are like, yeah, you can inspect it. Is it free? And be like, oh yeah, it's free. It takes me like 15, 25 minutes. It's not too long. But I'd get up there, take some pictures and be like, yeah, you see that missing shingle? Or, hey, you see your shingles are extremely light. like you are missing a lot of coverage on your home, and this could be a problem in the next like 2 to 3 years. And then people would be like, okay, yeah, let's do something about it, at least maybe get it, repaired in a couple of places. So I would just kind of use it to better tailor my pitch of like how to approach that client depending on how old their home was. Maybe if they have, I guess, a lot of money that they're making a year as a combined income, I can be like, this is something that you guys can definitely afford. And if they can't afford it, I would be like, hey, your insurance company would actually pay for something like this. Let's look into it as a claim. And it just kind of depends on what I would see data grid wise, I should say.
Gotcha. Okay. Now, what about so data grid? You said that you zoom out, it's going to be the whole state. You zoom in, it's going to be the city. And then can you do LASO or whatever it's called, LASO for data grid, and then see what the statistics are, the data grid statistics are specifically for the LASO location
That's a great question. And
for
actually,
what you lassoed?
yeah, it's a highly requested feature. At this exact moment in time, the only way to view the information that I was showing you guys is using that overlay system on the pre-cut territory, because this information comes directly from the state. We don't build it out ourselves.
Okay. Pre-cut. Okay.
Great question. Now, let's go ahead. Yeah, and we'll talk about probably what are the more important takeaways from today's conversation with me. I know that we have just a couple more minutes, so I'm going to talk about this really quick here for you guys. When I zoom in and I can see all these pins on the map, obviously there's probably going to be a lot of rental properties in here or people that just don't qualify that I don't really want to waste my time with. So in the top left-hand corner, there is that little funnel icon, which I showed you guys a little bit earlier in the call. But this will give you guys the ability to view your map, or I guess not your map settings, but your map's filters settings. Now, the first filter that I want all of you guys to turn on is shared leads. So this one just gives you guys the ability to see each other's leads in the account. That way, if somebody has been canvassing a territory, you want to be able to see what they have done in case you guys want to help each other or make sure that you're not double knocking on a door. There is also, if I click that little drop-down arrow next to shared leads, there's a section for a quick date. Make sure that your guys is changed from today. So click on today and then switch it to all time. That way you guys can see all the leads that anyone ever creates over the course of all time.